you have to have these difficult conversations.
So the movement is about equality.
That was a really intense debate.
Let's just keep it strictly about facts and we'll be good.
I mean, this is a verbal fight. I mean,
it is.
We invite you to be a part of the league and participate in actually debating.
Can you hear me now?
Good evening, Great Debate League. I'm your moderator and host for the evening, Dr. Bruce Strobel, and we appreciate you for taking part in tonight's debate. I hope that you all can stay with us to the end because we rely on your votes to determine who is the greater debater. So tonight we have a special broadcast. We have two brilliant young Black men who have agreed to settle their differences through an intellectual exchange. Tonight's premise: African Americans would have greater political influence if they created their own political party. This is a really interesting premise. Arguing the affirmative, we have Jalen Jones, a 17-year-old activist, high school student, and leader and founder of the United Afro Student Organization. Jalen is committed to moving Black people forward through politics and by any other means necessary. Arguing the negative, Alex Blocker, a Columbia, South Carolina native. He was recently inducted into the United States Senate Youth Program. Of only 104 delegates from the country who are chosen to speak with America's most prominent leaders, including the president and the vice president. Alex also a very involved activist in his community, staying involved in election politics as well as campaigns for gardening and against homelessness. So tonight's guiding definitions: political influence. In government, influence denotes one's ability to get others to act, think, or feel as one intends. And by political party, we mean an organized group of people who have the same ideology or who otherwise have the same political positions and who field candidates for elections in an attempt to get them elected to thereby implement their agenda. This is an unranked debate, so the rules are as following. There will be no personal attacks of any kind, no profanity will be allowed, and no interrupting. Both participants are allowed to call a fact check timeout only during one of their designated speaking times. So this debate, again, is from the Great Debate League, and we love to provide opportunities for individuals to sharpen their voice and broaden their perspectives. And we invite everyone to join the league. So now let's get to our debate. We start with our opening round, which is opening statements, round one. Each participant will be able to provide an uninterrupted opening statement of 3 minutes. We're going to begin with Jalen Jones arguing the affirmative. You have 3 minutes, Jalen.
Thank you, Bruce. So for the last 150 years, there have really been two political parties that have dominated American politics. And those have, of course, been the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And both kind of feed off of the Black vote because the Black vote is Black power. Within our vote, there's plenty of power that both parties are reaching for. And there's been no Democratic president, at least since FDR, that hasn't garnished at least 82% of the Black vote. The Black vote is extremely powerful for getting Democratic presidents in office. I think we saw that this year when Georgia finally turned blue for what seemed to be in the last 20 years, which therefore elected Biden to office and got Harris in her position today. So I think we can very much settle the fact that Afro-Americans and their vote is very powerful to both parties. And we have dominantly been Democrats because the Democrats have given us what we want, or at least it has been seen that way. They've painted this picture that they are our friend and that they will help us. And I think Brother Malcolm X said it best. He said the Democrat is like a fox and the Republican is like a wolf. The fox will pretend to be your friend. It may lick you, it may play with you, but at the end of the day, it will eat you. It will eat you. Its intentions weren't necessarily pure, right? It kind of hit him. But when it comes to the wolf, well, the wolf, its intentions are pretty pure, and that's the Republican Party. And I think we can heavily argue that the Republican Party has never had Afro-Americans' best interest at heart. And it's been like that for a while. If you look at the history of some of the bills they have supported and some of the things that they have done and said. And so the wolf will eat you, and it does not care. Its intentions are very pure. When Afro-Americans are going out there to vote and to pick a party, at this point, it has really become pick your poison. Would you rather support the Democrat that says they will help you, that says they will push your people forward, that says they will end police violence? Or will you support the Republican who, if anything, is going to put you and dig you a deeper hole? Instead of having to pick and choose between which party we should vote for and which poison will kill us faster or let us last a little bit longer, why don't we create our own party? Our own party. Do for self, like the Nation of Islam always says. Why don't we just do for ourselves? Why don't we create a party where we have our own agenda, an agenda that directly supports and helps Afro-Americans and moves us forward? Why don't we create a political party when we have 40 million Afro-Americans in this country and we can garnish at least 20 million of that vote? And better yet, most minority ethnic groups have some of the same issues, same wants and needs as Afro-Americans themselves. So if we create a party for Afro-Americans, it's not just a party for us, it's a party for every minority ethnic group out there that feels as if they have been abandoned. And I think one of the most interesting facts is the fact that we actually withhold our vote in some elections when we don't like either candidate. Look at the 2016 election. We dropped nearly 10% in the Afro-American vote participation because we didn't like either candidate. Instead of picking your poison, pick the party that you know will do exactly what you want it to do. And that's our own party, a Black political party that will influence us.
That was excellent, Jalen. And now we're going to move on to Alex Blocker. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. A Black political party must be capable of having enough votes to get a candidate into office or to at least pose a threat to the current duopoly. So while Brother Jaylon can easily derive a correct diagnosis of American politics, what is not easily definable is the solution to these problems. The formation of a third party, specifically ones that focus on African Americans, has been tried several times within the civil rights movement height and beyond, including Black political parties that are present today. And the common theme is that these parties do not bring substantial gains to the African American community. And my main points are that third parties simply do not work in America. Black votes, and he mentioned the addition of other ethnic minorities, are not enough for success past a hyper-localized community level. And when the third party assumingly becomes a viable threat, the dominant party will bend the knee, chipping away at a third party's number. And so as opposed to starting a new party, an organization should hold current elected officials accountable and think about putting in Black candidates that support a Black agenda, and that taking over the current political party is easier and has a significantly more possibility of working. And so looking at Georgia, the state where, as he said, the Black vote mattered the most, the Black vote still only amounted to 32% of the electorate. And so if every Black vote went towards a different party, and let's add in some of the Hispanics, let's add in some of the Muslim community, the Republican Party simply would have won. And this is called the spoiler effect. And as America has a winner-take-all voting system, you need at least more than 50% of the vote to win. And so as he correctly identified, African Americans benefit the least from a Republican-controlled legislature. So what would happen is when you have built up support towards a Black party and then a Republican party gets in, and you will immediately see adverse effects, support for your party will probably die out. There are 72 counties out of over 3,000 where the Black population has over a 50% majority. And that's assuming that every Black person in that county can vote. And so if we determine that this new political party could succeed on various, like I said, hyper-localized areas, I would agree, right? But that's only 72 out of over 3,000 counties. And so when voters are given a choice between sort of a New Deal Democrat, and this is historically a New Deal Democrat, socialist, or a communist candidate, they always pick the Democrat, and that was because the Democrats can actually deliver on certain goods, assuming that you have the votes to hold them accountable. And looking at the 2020 Democratic primary, we saw that Bernie Sanders was the most left-leaning candidate that we had, and yet Black voters simply did not choose Bernie Sanders in 2020 or in 2016. And so what you had is Black voters, again, as you said, not showing up to support Hillary Clinton. But when it was time to support a candidate that nominally and on paper had the ideas that would have supported the African-American community the most, they simply did not show up. And so even more so looking at the 2020 election, you had older Black voters that supported the more centrist candidate in Joe Biden versus the more left-leaning candidate in Bernie Sanders.
Really strong openings, gentlemen. Now we're going to be moving into round two. This is the lightning round, which allows for open cross-examination between both participants. and you're going to interrogate each other's arguments. This is a shared time frame for both debaters. Audience, please listen carefully and begin to pose your questions, because after this, we'll be going to our question and answer round. So this round lasts for 15 minutes. Remember to allow each other to speak, but also be clear on your intentions to interrogate your opponent's argument. All right, gentlemen, I'm leaving you here 15 minutes.
Yeah. So like I said, I definitely agree. Look, the Democrats give very little to the Black American population, and as you said, the Republicans don't do much at all. But where I would disagree is that, again, I do not see a third party able to coalesce around candidates or agree on a strategy that might be able to threaten the Democratic Party. So I guess my question is, where do you see this party working the best? That's where I kind of want to start.
Well, for starters, great introduction, brother. That was really well said. I think you said something where you said you couldn't necessarily see that happening, and I think that's interesting, because I think a lot of times we don't always see things happening, because vision is oftentimes a little bit blurry. It's only till after the fact that you kind of go in retrospect and realize that at the end of the day it was going to work. You just were in a little bit of self-doubt, and so maybe some of the facts may say that, maybe some of the ideas may say that, but I think it comes down, if anything, more of a moral and more of a self-empowerment sort of way of making our own party, so we can stop relying on another man or another woman that doesn't look like us and oftentimes does not have our best interest at heart. We need to stop relying on them to push forward an agenda that we want or that we created. And so one of the biggest arguments is actually, I don't think you run straight out and you reach for the presidency, just like when you're training for something, right? You don't immediately go pick up the biggest weights and the heaviest weights. You start at 5 pounds and maybe you pick up 10, maybe you go 15, and by maybe 30 weeks in, you're already picking up the 45s, right? That's
right.
So right? So why don't we first start at a lower level? Why don't we first try to at least get a representative in Congress who has our agenda at heart? Okay, maybe let's.
Right. So the problem with that is there's not enough numbers for simply a African American candidate or include every minority, right? Like I said, there's only about 72 counties out of over 3,000 where you have the numbers alone to do that. So I don't know if we're including our Caucasian people within this party. My main point would be, again, look at every congressional district. I think the laws require that you need at least 50% of a minority. And most of the time, that's not only African American. So again, let's look back to Georgia, right? They lost a Democratic seat where Black turnout was still high. So even when Black turnout is high, we can actually still lose. And again, let's go back to Georgia. We had the highest amount of political turnout that we've ever seen and likely will ever see. And they still only won by less than 2 percentage points. And they likely would have lost if a certain amount of Trump voters actually voted. And a lot of studies show that they died from COVID due to the lack of effectiveness by the Trump administration. So we're talking about very slim margins. And I think that if we are able to, like you said, if we can hold a block of our vote against the Democratic candidate, then who knows, maybe they'll be able to listen. But we would still have to then run a candidate as a Democrat that has a chance of winning in that district. So I agree, like, sure, we need a candidate that is going to push for reparations, if that's something you believe in. We need a candidate that's going to push for, let's say, universal health care, free education, right? But we can't do that without other voters. We simply don't have the numbers. And so that's sort of the main part of my point. And you said vision and facts. I was looking at new political parties that were formated with like Stokely Carmichael, I think in Alabama. And you had about 4 political parties, one in South Carolina, one in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. And they all did not work. And we even have a new party now with Diddy, I think. Granted, it did only start in November. But and this is the last thing I'll say, I'll let you respond. You said start local, start low. I never said that we should run at a presidential level or a Senate level, even if you would still lose. But like you said, even on a congressional level, even on a high-ranking governorship, a high-ranking commissioner seat, right? These are still things that are going to require more than the population that we have right now.
Definitely. Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, so that's really going to come down to that. We're going to have to get used to the fact that it's going to take time to build it up, but as long as it's effective and it follows, I guess you could say, a Black nationalist standpoint. Black nationalism being that we control the areas in our communities and the people that we elect are people that look like us and represent us, then surely it can work. Nipsey Hussle did it, but without the politics. He went into his community, their community that was dominantly Afro-Americans. He built up businesses, he built programs for them, and it worked and it thrived. Black nationalism can work, and it can certainly work with the political party as long as the right people are in office and we can garnish the respect and solidify our position within that party and with around that group of people, specifically that being Afro-Americans or any other ethnic groups. What irks me and kind of tugs at me is only 44% of Afro-Americans actually believe in Democrats to essentially do what's best for Afro-Americans. And I think what was even more interesting is I'm reading this article that's coming from The Guardian, and it's talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and it's talking about their history. So it says Senator Kamala Harris was severely scrutinized for her treatment of poor Black women as a prosecutor, yet Biden's criminal justice record makes Harris look like Thurgood Marshall. So how can we continue to put faith in a party and a group of people who oftentimes screw us over, who oftentimes don't have our best interest at heart? Sure, we can hold them accountable, but how much accountability is there really? And even if we continue to vote for the Democratic Party, like I said, I think you're actually saying it best. It's pick your poison. Okay, well, the Republicans don't like us. The third party may not work. Guess we got to vote for Democrats. It's that moral obligation it's not right, and we should be able to trust and believe in a party with at least more than half of Afro-Americans actually believing, and we're below half right now, 44%. So my main question to you is, how do you respond to that? How do you in any way make up for that fact that, oh well, yeah, some of our candidates kind of screwed us over, but hey, they'll hopefully get things done. How do we respond to that? How do we make Afro-Americans believe in a party that they don't believe in?
Yeah, so as you said, you're correctly diagnosing the problem, but you're not bringing any sort of factual basis to how we can solve it. But let's again look at the 2016 Democratic primary, right? You had a candidate that on racial issues better than Hillary Clinton. You had a candidate in 2020 on racial issues better than Joe Biden, right? And so you had Black voters in South Carolina, my state, that came out. Every single county voted overwhelmingly for Joe Biden. And if you look at exit polls, every time it's like, okay, what issue matters to Black voters? And it's like, let's say universal health care. Now, Joe Biden doesn't believe in universal health care, but yet all the Black candidates, I think it was like over 80% of Black voters over 45 voted for Joe Biden. So you say that there's no trust in the Democrats. Right, I agree. But when they were presented with a candidate who was here on racial issues and on every other issue versus here, they still supported Joe Biden, the conservative. And so I guess my point is that there are factors other than, well, we simply don't like the way it's done. You have the media, you have moneyed interests, and then those are really the biggest. I mean, you said Rome wasn't built in a day, but that's not giving me any sort of reason to see how you're going to format a political party. And like I said, there were 4 political parties that were sprung out after the civil rights movement, and they all were either co-opted, didn't get enough votes, or what happened is you would have the Democratic Party kind of steal some of the ideas, and then you didn't have a base anymore. And so my proposed solution would simply be take your voting power, put in a Democrat, and what happens when you put in a Democrat that you voted in is now you're holding that Democrat accountable. If you try and do a third party candidate, the Democrat simply is not going to win. And the Republican Party isn't going to listen to you at all, as I outlined in my opening statement, the spoiler effect. And so, again, you're not giving me any numbers to show that this would work outside of what I already conceded, which is the 72 counties out of 3,000, right? And so that's not a congressional district. That is only state legislature, and that's not even a majority of the state legislature. Even in South Carolina, while we do have one of the highest Black populations per county, is limited to about 12 out of the 50 counties that we have. And so we're gonna have a plus Caucasian majority. And even if we were to start a Black party, it would lead to less power within the political system, leading to adverse effects.
Certainly. But I think where we're tugging at is, I get what you're saying. You're saying, provide me the facts. Provide me the facts on how this party will work. Provide me the facts on this, and that. But there's been no political party that's done it successfully. But does that mean we give up? Does that mean we pick our poison and go with the Democrats? Is what I'm saying. Like but you're also saying that when you vote someone in power, you're supposed to when you do that, you keep them accountable. But how can we vote Biden and Kamala into office, right? Not saying that I totally detest them. I'm just holding them accountable. How can we put them in office and then see if we can't hold them accountable when they're the AG, right? Or when they're a senator? How in the world can we hold them accountable as president and vice president? They easily smooth through the system in this way. Do you expect it to stop? There are Afro-Americans have been dying from police encounters for years, and is no end in sight. If Democrats really care, I'm sure there would be more of a push to actually do things. There'd be more bills, more legislation, even more talk about it. In my opinion, I think there's certainly more ways we can help solve these issues. But I think it's almost hurting ourselves, and kind of we're disrespecting ourselves by simply wanting to go to a table with the white man and the white woman, expecting them to do what's best for us, when we could simply create our own and start at a lower level. Can I give you the exact facts of will that work? No, and I'll be honest about that. But why not try? Why not put that political party community and see what happens? If it doesn't work, it doesn't. It won't, and that's why we're having this debate. Whose idea will work best? But it doesn't hurt to go out there and actually try to implement this. And you talk about the spoiler effect and the things that could happen, but you also realize that Afro-Americans have no other choice. It's the wolf or the fox. You have no other choice. Give them a new option. It's like when your mom gives you a plate of food and she says steak or chicken, but you want fish. You can go cook your fish, right? You can go make your food, or you can eat what they gave you. Right now, Afro-Americans are stuck between Democrat or Republican. Go make your own food. Go make your own party. Try and do something with that, right? We have to actually try. I don't think sitting in mud and letting ourselves sink is the best option, which you're pretty much proposing, saying hold them accountable. We can't hold them accountable in lower position. There is no way we're going to hold them accountable as president and vice president. That simply just doesn't line up.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying we had a chance to hold. We had a chance to not vote Joe Biden in. We had a chance to not vote Kamala Harris in. In fact, Kamala only had about 5% of less than 5. I mean, she was down atrocious, for lack of better terms.
Exactly.
But we don't represent the overwhelming majority of the voters. And you mentioned holding them accountable. And I agree. Once they became president, once they became vice president, how are you going to hold them accountable? The point of holding them accountable was to not vote for them when we had a chance to not vote for them. And but that's not going to a different political party. That's going to a different candidate, because again, you don't have the votes. You simply don't have the votes that goes into another one. And when you break away from the party, you no longer have any leverage. So you say, create your own table. Your table is not in the room where the decisions are being made. And so if we're talking about sort of a non-electoral strategy, sort of like how the Black Panther Party did, where they were adhering to the needs of the community. Okay, but we're debating a political party. The purpose of the political party is to gain influence, is to run candidates. So, I mean, it seems like we are talking about kind of two different things, where I'm talking about holding this party accountable, and you're talking about a theoretical party, which you admitted won't have the factual basis to work, and historically has not worked. Even the Socialist Party that was in the 1910s and 20s dissolved, and that was the most successful party. And I didn't even get into the rules and legislation that limits the effectiveness of third parties, even ones that have been around since the 1960s.
Afro Americans are becoming more moderate as time's going. We have plenty of conservative values, but we aren't necessarily Republicans. Joe Biden ran his whole campaign.
That would hurt your point.
Joe Biden ran his whole campaign off of Obama. It was pick your poison once again. You're saying that we still voted for Joe Biden because he was the best candidate, but it was like I keep saying, wasn't the best candidate. It was
I disagree. I said in the 2020 primary, Joe Biden, in my opinion, was not the best candidate. However, black voters over 45 still overwhelmingly supported him.
If you don't vote for me, you're not black, really.
Again, I'm not disagreeing. Really. I'm not disagreeing with that. You didn't say it. Like I don't like Joe Biden as a political person. I'm just saying we had the chance to vote somebody in that wasn't Joe Biden, and black voters simply picked otherwise. And you said to your own point, well, time's up, but I guess we'll go to questions now.
Whew, okay, my goodness. Gentlemen, you are both on fire. This is perhaps one of the better debates I've had the chance to witness. I want to commend you both for a great lightning round. But now we're going to move to the question and answer section. And please, audience, if you're watching, please start putting your questions up. We'll have them come up on stage. I'm going to read them, and you'll get 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Okay, our first question, and you'll both get a chance to answer this. Wouldn't it be cheaper and more cost effective to create funds for political parties instead of a political party itself? All right, I'm going to give that one to the affirmative, Jalen, first, and then Alex, you'll get a chance to answer that one. Go ahead, Jalen.
Would it be cheaper and more cost effective to create funds for political parties? What is the person trying to say? Funds for political parties, meaning the ones that we currently have, or funds for political parties that are different than the Democrats and Republicans? Because there's no real big political party that's actually put like Alex said, Diddy has one, but to be honest with you, I honestly don't even know what he's been doing with this. So there may be third political parties.
The clarification is they mean political, like PAC, super PACs, instead of political parties. So to create funds for PACs instead of for political parties.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a great alternate source, but I'm only worried with how far would that actually go and how big of an influence could that actually really make. And instead, and in that case, I would honestly say you could probably, with the same money that you wanted to put forward to a super PAC, you could probably put behind the new party itself, because at the same time, you're going to get funds from other people. We have plenty of billionaires that are Afro-Americans. Well, not plenty, but we have a few, and we have plenty of millionaires that are Afro-Americans. I'm sure that if we built an agenda that was actually progressive, right? What most Democrats are into is that most liberals are into is that Democrats are progressive. So we actually could get the Caucasian vote if the party was progressive enough and had the same views that aligned with them. So in that case, you might as well put the money forth to that party, get the donorship, and I'm sure you could find something to do with that party, keeping it maybe cost effective. But I think it's a good idea, whoever proposed the question.
Okay. Alex, you have 1.5 minutes to answer this question.
Yes, so I would agree with that, and there's actually examples of this working for candidates that are to the left, not necessarily socialists or communists, but sort of your social democrats, your kind of Scandinavian model people. And so what happened is you had a group called Justice Democrats. It's a political action committee, and they would endorse candidates. And actually, the most notable one would be AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I have my disagreements with her. I'm sure many people in this debate league have disagreements with her. But what cannot be denied is that her ideas are to the left of the mainstream Democratic Party, and her ideas also would help African Americans more. So I definitely would agree with that. If we were to give money to our political action committee, right? That's not a political party though. So if we're giving money to our political action committee that's endorsing candidates that believe in reparations, that believe in a Black agenda, that are supporting things that we collectively want, okay, but that's different than a political party, right? Those are two separate entities that are doing two separate things. And even with the success of that organization, they still lose more than they win, which I guess in politics is par for the course. But it's still something that requires a broad-based coalition. And outside of a local level, state legislatures, you probably would not see much success.
All right. Our next question. Will Black politicians vote in our interest if they're not in a Black party? Alex, you could go ahead and take that one first.
So as Jaylon said, if and it's kind of I said, if we are in a position to vote them out, if a vote comes up and let's say it's on reparations, which it would be surprising, but let's say it's on reparations and we have a Black candidate that we voted in and he or she is like, you know what? I don't think so, right? If we all come together on Twitter and say, hey, look, if you don't vote for this, we're voting you out of office, right? And we have the numbers to do that. Then more than likely, it's in the politicians' interest to stay in office. But again, we can only do that in certain districts, none of which are on a congressional level, definitely none of which are on a Senate level. But to answer your question, would they vote in our interest if they're not in our Black party? Again, say you're in the Democratic Party, but you're in a district where the Black vote is the majority, right? You're going to need to cater to the needs of that Black population. And if you don't, you simply get voted out. That's not every district, though. So I can't speak for a Black person that may win in a predominantly white district, right? If you don't have the numbers to vote them out of office, their interest is not with you for the most part. But that's my answer.
Okay, Jalen, please, 1.5 minutes for that question.
Well, I'd probably say it's probably not even that easy because I don't always think some of the Black politicians that we have in office are always necessarily voting for what we want, because you also have to think about it. And when you're in office and you're in Congress, there kind of can be like a little, definitely a form of peer pressure or intimidation to vote our way and vote for what we want. And I think it also be said for Republicans. I mean, they don't ever vote for what we want anyway. So I don't think that we can even really put them in the equation. I think what would be stronger and have a better influence is that if we actually created our political party, we put Black politicians in there. I think it's way more of a threat to say, look, we put you in this position of power. You are directly supposed to support us, and you're going against something that we believe. We can easily vote you out, compared to the Democratic Party, which isn't a party that specifically caters to Black people. There is a variety of people in there. It may cater to the ethnic minority group as a collective, but is it purely focused on our interests first and everyone else second? No, not necessarily. So I think that one's kind of hard because, yeah, you can threaten them and say, hey, you're not keeping our best interest, but at the same time, you would have to also look at the other people and what's the best decision off that. And you may have the numbers to vote them out, but that could have been your best candidate at the same time. So I think it's best just to put people who we know and can assure will vote our way, instead of having to tiptoe around it and say, maybe Joe, maybe Beth's gonna do it, maybe Beth won't. It's better just to have assurance.
Okay, and our last question. Anything can work if the right people are in power. How do we ensure that is the case? Jalen, you could go first with this one.
I think, if I'm saying it right, Mandela said that perfectly. Anything can work if the right people are in power. So how do we assure that? Well, first off, we keep people accountable. I'm not going to necessarily say whether I like or dislike Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I'll keep that for a separate time. But it certainly raises an eye that they were able to make it this far. No one was able to sit down and actually question it and say, why would we want to vote for them when they have a history of going against what we needed or what we actually wanted? Sure, it came down to that pick your poison, but I think it shouldn't have even gotten that far where we now look back on it and we're like, dang, they weren't even trying to protect us in the first place. So to ensure that we keep people accountable, we actually pick people that we know are out there supporting our people. Shoot, maybe this party has a group of young activists that so happen to grow up and just become politicians, and now they're leading us. Their history has shown that they actually are keeping us, our best interest at heart, that they're looking to take care of us and take care of our people, and they're pushing for the things that this Black political party actually stands for and wants. I think the Democrats have done a really great job at being a fox for the last 150 years, sneaking around and dodging the bullets and doing whatever they want, and then getting the Black vote and coming into our community when it's time to vote, or whether that's the primaries or whether that's the midterms. They're definitely really good at that. They've mastered that skill. So how we ensure that? We keep people accountable. And even before keeping people accountable, we pick the right candidates. right? We find people who actually believe in what we believe in, and we put them in power.
Alex.
Yes. So, how do we ensure that that's the case? How do we ensure that the right people are in power? You will have to use a coalition of people. That you can't. It depends on what level of success that we're talking about. If we're talking about on a presidential level, there's simply no way you're going to have a candidate that is only fighting for Black people, nor is that candidate probably going to get past the primary. How do we ensure that that's the case? Again, he said it best. You have to hold them accountable, but that means, again, finding the right candidates and researching them. Again, on a congressional level, representatives, if you don't like that person, then organize to find a new candidate that has a chance of beating them, probably under the Democratic label, right? We are accurately discussing the problem, right? These candidates are not looking out for our best interests, but then completely skipping how we're going to get them in office, right? So we have to find a candidate that is going to be able to appeal while also pushing ideas like universal healthcare, like free college, things that will help the African-American community the best because we are the most marginalized, while also appealing to more interest groups.
Excellent, gentlemen. Very good. Okay, we have come to the closing statements. Each participant will provide an uninterrupted closing statement. You'll have 3 minutes. We're going to hear Jalen first with the affirmative closing. Jalen, you have 3 minutes to close.
Well, of course, thank you. And thank you to Alex for a great debate. I think, as I started off and as I've said, there are two political parties are dominating, but it seems to be, and I think as we both agreed, that they don't have our best interest at heart. And I believe it's simple enough that we have to go create our table. And if it's not in the room that's where decisions are made, then you break the wall down and you push it in. If there is a district where Afro-Americans are voting for Democrats and they hold the majority of that vote, all you do is you take that Democrat, pick them up, you put in your Black candidate in that Black party, and you put them in. And now you have that influence, and now you have that vote. I think for too long we have sat and suffered, and it brings back almost like the memories of slavery, where we were kept bondage by our oppressors, not being able to move and having to do what they say. And it's when you're told to do something, you know you don't want to do it. I think, as I kept saying throughout the whole debate, it comes back to this idea of pick your poison. Look, you either pick the cotton or you get whipped. And at this point, Afro-Americans seem to be in a position where it's you vote for the Democrat or you vote for the Republican. One is going to make you live longer, and the other is going to certainly delay that, certainly cut that off. So I think right now Afro-Americans need to pick themselves up. And if Afro-Americans have any respect for themselves, they'll go out there and create a political party. Did I bring the facts to show that it'll actually work? Not necessarily, but I think Alex may have brought them for me, where he said, where he kept giving me the example of the district, and you can put that you can vote them out, right? Well, if Black people have the majority vote in that district, and there's now a candidate that's iffy on some of the things on voting for something that Afro-Americans want in that district, take them out, put the person you want in. And I think we solved it there. I think it's time to at least try and to see, in the modern age, can we create a third political party that will be effective and will fundamentally push forward an agenda that certainly will help Afro-Americans and hopefully, maybe even better, emulate the experience that Afro-Americans have with the Democratic Party on some occasions, even though the Democratic Party for a long time has taken our vote for granted. I think oftentimes I'll think about the signing of the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act. Lyndon B. Johnson called us Negro, supported us in the broad daylight. If that's what you want to do, if you want to continue to support the Democratic Party and what they believe in, fine. But eventually it's going to catch up to us. And when our brothers and sisters continue to die in the streets, when we still can't get nothing passed in Congress that directly helps us, and when we still have posers and liars running for president saying that they're going to keep our best interest at heart, when really their history shows that that is most definitely a negative, then we'll finally have to pick ourselves up and say, hey, it's time to move to our own table, break the wall down, push our table in, and drill it down and solidify our place in this political atmosphere. I think there's plenty of time to do it. And I think, go ahead and take the time.
That was a great closing statement. And now we're going to hear from our negative argument from Alex Blocker. 3 minutes to close, sir.
Thank you, and definitely a great, respectable debater. As I've outlined before, nice rhetoric, right? Nice theorization of what is able to happen. However, in practice, in praxis, you're not going to be like, you're going to build your table and you're not even going to get close to the door, right? My proposed solution is a takeover of what is already there. So I agree, right? African Americans don't trust the Democrats. So vote in Democrats that can get into office, right? There's a difference between somebody who I 100% agree with, but is only going to get 13% of the vote, and you need at least 50 to get into the vote, right? So I think that there is a place for having candidates that agree with us more. And that just comes with being able to look at a candidate and say, hey, if it's Joe Biden, I don't like Joe Biden. Can I vote for Bernie Sanders? Can I vote for Warren, right? These and the only way that you're going to shift the they call it the Overton window. The only way you're going to do that is if you have a candidate that is in office that is actively pushing for those ideas, but you're not going to do that with just your ethnic groups, right? You can say that I don't trust Black people to vote for, to be able to support a party, but the problem is even Caucasian third parties don't even work, and they have way more money than we ever could muster, right? So it simply does not work. Again, I agree with the rhetoric. I agree with the Black Democrats nominally don't look out for us, right? But your proposed solution would lead to the other party getting in office, and they would do even worse for the Black people. So that doesn't mean, hey, we should just sit down, not even fight. But if we have a chance to vote for a better candidate, then do that. But it's going to have to be within the Democratic Party, and you can use that to sort of do exactly what you said, wolf in sheep's clothing, right? We are getting Black candidates or candidates that agree with us in office, right? And then we're shifting the Overton window, right? But you're not going to be able to do that with just the African American, with just the minority vote alone. The districts that I mentioned was assuming that everybody votes. The districts that I mentioned are only on a local level. They only represent less than about 10% of the over 5,000 legislatures that we have across the country. So that's not bringing you the broad success that you need, right? The success is going to come with a takeover of the Democratic Party with people that would agree with us. And even then, that's still on a small level because we're going to need other people's support. That's just how American politics works. And since we're talking about political parties, since we're talking about political influence, the goal is to win in the election. And we're not talking about just the ideas here.
Excellent closes from both of our participants. Everybody, if you could just take the time to recognize both of these men are in high school. And these are future leaders for Black America. And we are very proud to have you on our show, The Great Debate League, tonight. You're both great debaters. So everybody, that is our debate for the evening. Please, I want you to take your time to look at our new scorecards and let us know how you score each participant's performance. This is a quick form that should only take you 2 minutes to complete. Please score each debater's performance in presenting fact-based arguments, meaning they provided facts to support their arguments, subject matter expertise, they demonstrated understanding of the subject matter at hand, their persuasiveness, logical and convincing arguments, their elocution, their ability to communicate clear and effectively, and their ability to provide rebuttals to their opponent's arguments. So again, I want to thank you, Jalen Jones and Alex Blocker, for participating in the Great Debate League. It was our pleasure to create thought-provoking discussions on critical issues where we're able to learn from both of our presenters, and we learned a lot from both of these gentlemen tonight. Again, audience, we want to thank you for watching and submitting questions. We need your support to keep this program running. Please donate to our Cash App so that we can continue to grow. And that is our cash tag, $, Great Debate League. Also, please check us out on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our page, become a member of our Patreon page as well. And then please join us shortly after this broadcast for our post-debate analysis, where we'll discuss with the other Great Debate League commissioners, where I'll discuss with them about our thoughts on this debate, and we'll announce the winner. Have a great night, and remember to speak the truth.